Hey, this is Callan from Authentic Lifestyle Design, and today I want to talk to you about the big fish, little pond effect. Now, this is a psychological effect where we compare ourselves to those around us. So, meaning, if you're good at something, you're comparing how good you are to people around you. And if you're a big fish in a small pond, that means that you're in a small space, a smaller community, and in that community, you're really high up in something, right? But let's use an example. Say you're a musician and you live in a town that has 500 people and you play the violin and you're the best violin player in your town of 500 people, right? Then all of a sudden you finish school and you go to uni to study the violin. So say you move from a city of 500 or a little town of 500, you move to a city of 2 million. And now you're studying at a university with a bunch of people that are at your level or higher. Right. That is where all of a sudden you were a big fish in a small pond. You've moved. Now you are a smaller fish comparatively because there's plenty of people around that are much better than you. Pros and cons to both of these. And you have a look at that, right? You were the best in your little town. You moved to a big city, and all of a sudden there's way more competition and there's heaps of people that are really good at something. Then you would be a smaller fish in that larger pond, okay? And so on. So, an example for me as a musician. Let's start primary school when I played the piano. By about year 3, year 4, I was the best piano player in my primary school, which was about 150 people. So out of those 150 people, I was the best piano player. Then I went to high school, and all of a sudden there's 1,100 people, and I am no longer the best piano player. There's people that can outplay me. There is better piano players. But by the time I got to year 12 and finished high school, out of that pool of 1,100 people, I was the best piano player, okay? Then I decided to go and study music. So all of a sudden, now I'm in a city that has 500,000 people, and of those 500,000 people, there's a bunch of people all studying the piano. There's about 9 or 10 of us all studying the piano. And out of those 9 or 10, I was kind of in the middle as far as ability. So there was some people that were much better than me and people that weren't quite at my level, but it was much tighter. And that expanded. Now my pond was bigger, and I wasn't the best. And I would say even when I finished my degree, I was good at what I did, but there was other people that did other things that were probably better than me. And so on. If I were to then move, say, to Sydney, which has 5 million people, and to do post-grad study in music, it'd be the same thing all over again. I'd come in as like a rookie and be, on the bottom end of the totem pole with a bunch of people that are better than me. And then I could expand that again and go to be like an international level piano player. And then I'm, in a really big pond. I'm dealing with people from all over the world. So it's relative, right? If you're a big fish in a small pond, you can feel like you're on top of it. You can feel really good about yourself because you are. You're the best at something in that area. But then you expand the pond and all of a sudden you're not the best. And there's people that are better than you. And it's this funny little thing of relativity, right? So, for example, when I was studying my music degree, there was times where I felt I wasn't really that good at the piano. There was times where I felt a little down on myself and knew I should be practicing more and thought that I shouldn't, I just wasn't where I wanted to be and I didn't feel that competent at the instrument. And I was getting confused with all the jazz harmony and all the other things we were learning and was a little bit lost, right? Then I joined a band outside of university, just with your everyday musicians, and I'd absolutely wiped the floor with them because the level I was at was so much beyond the level they were at. We had a lot of fun, but technically I was just at a much higher level. And that's where I sort of remembered, it's like, oh yeah, well, I feel kind of average at this university, but in the grand scheme of things, we're at sort of the top of it in this town. There's probably only a couple of dozen piano players that are doing this sort of stuff in this city. So I started to look at it like that, which again kind of changed the paradigms and the frames and all the rest of it. So If you're a big fish and you need challenge, say you live in a town, 1,000 people, and you're a football player, you're the best in your town. If you want more challenge, then you have to move to a bigger pond where there's other people playing at your level. Because if you've reached the level, or the max level you can get in your environment where you are, then you probably need to move to another environment in order to take that further. You need to be playing a higher game, a bigger game. And that is where you move ponds. So you'll climb to become the best in one little area, then you'll move into a better area or a bigger area with more advanced people. Now we can compare that to martial arts as well. For example, say your instructor is a second degree black belt and they're the highest in their city, right? The highest in their little city. Well, when they go to Okinawa or they go wherever they go to train and they're training around a bunch of other people, all of a sudden they're not this big fish anymore. They're just a tiny little fish in this much larger pond. And it's all relative. So when you're struggling, sometimes you have to compare that to where you are in relation to other people, especially if it's something you're trying to do exceptionally well. You have to look at your pond, right? And you can't let being a big fish in a small pond to get to your head either, because that will limit you, okay? If you want to go bigger, then often changing your surroundings and being around a community of people that are at a high level in whatever it is you're doing is going to be highly beneficial. And I would consider that whenever it comes to the pond. And it's psychologically, if you're a big fish in a small pond, you're going to feel on top of it. You're going to feel like you're the best. And people around you are going to acknowledge you and they're going to see you as the best. And that's going to feel good. When if you're the same level you're at now, but you're in a much bigger pond, and there's heaps of people that are at your level or even beyond your level, all of a sudden that recognition, it begins to go away. And you don't really see that as much, okay? Because now it's a much larger, much bigger pool. And now a lot of us are in much bigger ponds than we really would think we are because of the internet, you know? So you could be the best at something in your town, but then you've got access to the internet and so does everyone else, where they can see people that are just exceptional and so much beyond you in whatever that thing is. And therefore your talent might not be as appreciated as it was in history. Because all of a sudden people can see all the talent on the whole globe, and now we feel like we're playing in this much bigger pond, which leads to people comparing themselves to other people they've never met. They're comparing themselves to these other people that are exceptionally good at whatever it is they're doing. And just say, say Jake, who's the best footy player in his town of 5,000 people, now he's comparing himself to like the best in the country or the best in the world. And that's a massive jump, right? And you have to kind of keep that into consideration. You have to realize what level you're playing at in whatever it is you want to do, because that level will have an effect on you. It'll have an effect on your skill, but it'll also have an effect on your psychology. Because psychologically, you might not feel as good about yourself if you're good at something, but you're seeing other people that are so much beyond you, right? It feels psychologically good to be on top. Humans are about survival. So if you get on top and you're loved, we all want love. So if you're loved for something you're good at, then that's going to make you feel great, okay? Now, how can we leverage this big fish, small pond thing, alright? Well, if you want to do certain things, say you want to attract a girl, or you want to find a job, or you want to impress someone, then it pays to be a big fish in a small pond. So in that circumstance, it's really useful sort of to be that big fish and to play up being that big fish and to be exceptional in whatever it is you do in the relation of the people around you. That's the benefit, right? You can be acknowledged as being good. Now, the bad side of that is that can affect you in the ways of productivity, which is you might not push yourself as hard as you otherwise could have. How we could fix that is you move to a bigger pond. Because maybe the small pond you're in where you're at the top, it doesn't challenge you enough. So what you might have to do is to move to a larger pond with people that are at a higher level, and that might challenge you a little bit more, okay? Because it will. You're going to move somewhere, being the best in your town, you're going to move to a city where everyone else was also the best in their town, and now you're all competing and learning from each other to become better. That's why your environment can be really important and why it's one of the pinnacles of lifestyle design, in my opinion. You've got to keep that into consideration. So I hope that Big Fish Little Pond is a model that can help you, and it helps in the perspective of keeping everything relative. If you feel really good at something or really bad at something, compare that to the size of the pond or the people in that pond. Are you comparing yourself to people all over the world, or in your city, or in your town, or in your little community? And keep it all into perspective. Okay? If heaps of people are saying you're really good at something and all the rest of it, feel great about that, but also understand the pull that they're pulling towards and that they're exploring. When they say you're really good at guitar, does that mean you're really good at guitar compared to the other 20 people around in your town that know a little bit of guitar? Or is that on an international level where you're like one of the best guitar players on the planet? Because it's very different as far as your skill. So I hope that you gained something out of that. If you did, give the video a like, give me a comment, share the video to anyone you think it might help, and I will talk to you soon.